Recently, the 27th Hawaii State Legislature ended its 2013 legislative session. Despite robust surpluses forecasted for this biennium, the legislature showed remarkable fiscal restraint and responsibility, recognizing that economic recovery is not a guarantee.
This session began with a $23.8 billion budget request from Governor Abercrombie and a number of proposals for tax and fee increases. We'll be discussing both, but first let's start with the governor's appropriation requests.
In December, Governor Abercrombie presented a budget to the legislature that spent $23.8 billion over the next 2 years. His spending included some very large items like $156 million for salary restoration, $32 million for early learning programs, $118 million for IT initiatives, including $29 million for student laptops. The budget also included some smaller items like $100,000 for the Governor's Fashion Awards, $67,000 for shellfish testing program, $700,000 for fish pond development, and $500,000 for a newly created department's travel expenses.
The House was the first body to consider the governor's requests, and the House Finance Committee, in part under the leadership of its first Republican vice chair, disagreed with many of his calls for new spending. The House reduced the governor's budget request for the new Office of Information Management and Technology to $8 million. The House also cut $55 million in funding for nearly 1,000 positions that remained vacant for over a year to force more accountability and transparency. Additionally, without a clear plan from the governor, the House felt that $32 million for early learning programs would be imprudent. In total, the House cut the budget $588 million below the governor's proposal, bringing the budget to $23.2 billion over 2 years. In a historical context, the House proposal is less than the most recent pre-recession budget, which called for $23.5 billion when adjusted for inflation.
After the House unanimously passed the budget, the next step of the budget process is to send the bill over to the Senate. Now, in the interim, many things have occurred that might change the budget and fiscal outlook for the state. The governor sent numerous messages to the Senate and to the legislature asking for additional spending. Additionally, departments and executive branch agencies had more time to make their case and justify many of their spending expenditures. The budget ultimately ended up looking a lot more like what the governor had ultimately requested, $24 billion over a 2-year period.
After the budget unanimously passed the Senate, it went to conference committee where negotiations took place between both houses. The House, under a leadership of a coalition of Republicans and Democrats, worked with the Senate to achieve a compromise, $31 million below the governor's and $249 million below the Senate's. The final budget approved appropriations of $23.8 billion over 2 years. The final proposal increased spending from the previous year, in part because it included some important expenditures, like recapitalizing the Rainy Day Fund with $50 million, replenishing the Hurricane Relief Fund with $160 million, paying $217 million toward unfunded liabilities, and reserving $25 million to cover the adverse impacts of federal sequestration.
In addition to our reduction of the governor's spending, the House was also able to stop a number of tax increases. Over the course of the 2013 legislative session, the House defeated legislation to increase the general excise tax, the barrel tax on gasoline, the conveyance tax. We also stopped an increase in the tobacco tax, an increase in the motor vehicle registration fee, an establishment of an internet sales tax, an establishment of a sugary beverages fee. Also defeated included a glass container fee, the establishment of a single-use checkout bag fee, and the establishment of an electronics waste fee. Despite Republican opposition, a few tax and fee increases did pass, including legislation to increase the mortgage servicer's fee, establish a portable electronics insurance fee, increase the escrow depository fee, increase the fees on financial institutions, and make permanent the current level of taxation on the hotel room tax. As you can see, on balance, this was a very successful session for those calling for fiscal restraint and a lower cost of living for Hawaii's people.
In short, this session wasn't perfect, but with only 7 of 51 members in the House Minority Caucus still had a number of successes. This session, our caucus encouraged the legislature in a more fiscally conservative direction that led to some proactive legislation, like the repeal of the cap on charitable donation deductions and establishing a tax credit for research and development.
Though we did not get everything we wanted, we were able to set a precedent that we can build on in the future. Our influence on the legislature led to headlines like tax relief on table for House, reduced tax burden on small businesses, House rightly exercising fiscal restraint, and session ends with legislators praising joint effort. Overall, our caucus successfully advocated for fiscally responsible positions that helped eliminate unnecessary spending and stop tax increases that would have exacerbated the cost of living on Hawaii's working families. And that's something that we can all be proud of.